Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 RSM Data Dive show. A quite delayed Data Dive show. My apologies for that. Could not control the schedule. I am in a winter basketball league. I had a game very late this evening. Hurried home, and we are here for the Data Dive show. We're going to cover everything that you need to prepare for this week in terms of wagers and DFS. We're going to take our first look at the forecast. We're going to take a deep statistical dive into the data surrounding Sea Island Resort, at least the seaside course. We're going to examine the players who have played very well here in the past, see what they've been doing well, all of that and more. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier today I posted some research around the past winners of the RSM Classic, some patterns that they all share, and players in the field who also fit those patterns. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow over at X. Finally, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a wonderful way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you throughout the week. And if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat as we continue the DFS talk over there. It's a very fun, informative, interactive chat. And be on the lookout as we are going to start putting some content together. I'm hoping for this week, the RSM, and then moving into 2025. So be on the lookout for that. You really are missing out if you aren't subscribed to his article. Make sure you're doing that and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Finally, we're live, or finally for this intro, we're live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. Have you made any wagers for the RSM? Who do you think is the early favorite in your mind? Do you think Ludwig Aubert repeats? All of that. Want to hear from you all in the community. So feel free to jump in chat. And if you're not able to catch the show live, make sure you jump into the comments. I will reply to everything there as well. So let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2024 RSM Classic. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Monday evening with the extended forecast look for the tournament. Of course, we are in St. Simons Island, Georgia for the RSM Classic. And a quick look at the forecast 2.5 days from the start of the tournament. Looks like, while not as much wind as we saw in Bermuda, it looks like we're going to be dealing with some more wind. This is right on the coast. The wind is the primary defense for at least the seaside course. So it's looking like we might want to take into consideration some wind performers in our projections as we move forward this week. Still too far out to try and determine a wave advantage, but we will update this at the beginning of Wednesday night's show. Make sure to note if one does develop. Perhaps a little bit of rain on Wednesday, but Thursday, Friday, even Saturday look pretty windy, fairly gusty, especially on Friday. Chilly. Highs in the low 60s. Doesn't even look like the high reaches 60 on Friday. So windy, chilly tournament is seemingly what is in store in St. Simons Island, Georgia this week. So we'll move to Fantasy National. And let's set this for the last 36 rounds and 2 years based on that forecast that we just looked at in Windfinder. Your top performers in moderate and windy conditions in the past couple of years have been Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, Andrew Novak, Patrick Rogers, Adam Schenk, Brian Harmon, Ludwig Ober, Doug Gim, Mark Hubbard, and Siwoo Kim. Do note there are 3 field changes. So if you see these players starred this evening, that is what that indicates. Rico Hoey, Mac Meisner, and Matty Schmid have decided not to play this week. They have already withdrawn from the RSM. So that is what this star is notating. So there's a look at your top wind performers moving forward this week. And it does appear that the wind is going to play a factor at least on Thursday and Friday. And we'll have to, as I mentioned, keep in mind or see if a wave advantage develops throughout the week. The other overwhelmingly obvious filter that we can look at is, of course, the short course filter. Both courses right over 7,000 yards, so very short, especially the Plantation course being a par 72. That's just over 7,000 yards. So your top performers on short courses the past couple of years: Ludwig Ober, Denny McCarthy, Keith Mitchell, Brian Harmon, JJ Spawn, Ryo Hitsatsune, Chris Kirk, Eric Cole, Ben Griffin, and Adam Svensson. Okay. With that, let's turn our attention to Microsoft Excel and let's dig into some pretty detailed data surrounding at least the Seaside course. And we're focusing on the Seaside course because that is going to be the course that has played 3 of the 4 rounds for the players who make the cut. For those who don't know, this is a 2-course rota. Players will alternate going off the Seaside and the Plantation course Thursday and Friday. Anyone who makes the cut will play the Seaside course Saturday and Sunday. And as we take a look at some detailed data here, we notice that putting is a pretty extreme factor here at the RSM. We saw that last night in our initial look. And in fact, this is a very, very low outlier. If we remove that, even though it only says, slightly under full field course average, at least in comparison to all of the other shot types, putting is by far and away the most important here. Off the tee is gained gradually year over year, so maybe something we might want to take a note of. Approach has steadily declined, with the exception of 2021 when it jumped. It's been in decline in importance. It has really been a putting tournament for the past 4 or so years, minus 2020 and Robert Shreb's win, at least for the finishers in the top 30. So we're going to have a very, very big emphasis in putting. Obviously, we're going to look at some approach, maybe a slight bit off the tee, but not really a whole lot here, especially considering when you look at compared to full field course averages, very, very lackluster. It's really only the putting that is anywhere close. So we'll take a look at that. We move to driving distance and fairways and greens. Couple of lower outliers here, but one very high one. So fairways might be a little bit. What is very obvious is that driving distance really isn't that big of a factor. You see, it's been negative a couple of years. Just not a big deal here. Greens had a pretty big influence last year for Ludwig Ober's win, but it's a pretty high outlier. You remove that number comes down a decent bit. Distance, as I mentioned, not a big deal. Fairways, slightly more important. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now in anything in this page view. These fairways are very, very wide, but it is very important to be on the correct side of the fairway to be able to attack some of these greens. You can be shut off from attacking these greens if you're on the incorrect side, a la a Pete Dye design. In a lot of cases, like Harbor Town comes to mind with that kind of course implement or course design. and wanting the golfers to play the course a certain way. So maybe some fairways. I don't see too much in terms of greens, good drives even. So really kind of in the fairways. That's where I'm leaning, I think, in this page view. It's definitely not in the distance. Distance isn't a big factor generally at the RSM. These greens are big. They're really easy to hit, so I don't know how much I want to factor that in. So, yeah, I'm guessing it is fairways. This is one that was very, very interesting. I wanted to take a pretty big look at, considering the players that had performed best traditionally in the past 5 years at the RSM were pretty even on birdies and bogeys, but you can see the birdies gained are severely outweighing the bogey avoidance for players that have finished in the top 30. And if we go to full field course averages, yeah, birdies gained are a big, big deal. So I'm a little shocked, but the data says what it says. So we're going to be focused quite a bit on the birdies gained, and really we might just be on the birdies gained because there isn't a whole lot of eagles around the RSM. On the Plantation course, sure, but you're only playing that one day. It's really just a lot of birdies. Really just a lot of birdies. We move into par 3s, 4s, and 5s. The par 3s, very consistent at a 1.47. The par 4s are where it's at, 4.6. And the par 5s, just off your screen, are a 1.49. So the par 5s and the par 3s are about even. Which makes some sense because there's only 2 par 5s for professionals to take advantage of on Seaside. So that makes quite a bit of sense. I'm a little shocked that the par 3s are a little bit mitigated, at least in my mind here, as they're only 3.5% more than the average full field course. It's really in the par 4s. We'll get into that. But interestingly enough, note that on the official scorecard, there are 2 par 3s that fall into this range, 2 that fall into this range. But you see, the 150 to 175 range actually is just as important as these other 3. So we're going to be taking a look at basically all par 3s because they're very evenly split here, which is interesting, but that it is what it is. Very, very, very interesting. So looking at all par 3s, no range really stands out. Looking at par 4s, that 4.6 is a massive, massive number. It's only going to say 7% more important because there are par 4s are generally pretty darn important. Like YLI, par 4s are extremely important. The Wyndham, these traditional par 70s, just like Seaside. So par 4s are going to have an overweighted importance, and look at where they are. It's all in the 350 to 4 and 400 to 450. Yes, that 0 to 350 has a little bit of data in there. You do have 2 par 4s that measure over 450, but they usually don't play all that important in the grand scheme of things. It's really, players have to take advantage of these lengths, the par 4s, as each of these par 4 lengths are more important than the par 5s and the par 3s total. So quite interesting to note that. And then moving into the par 5s, 1.5 here, and 2/3 of it come 550 to 600 because both par 5s over on the Seaside course play to this length. So this is where we're going to put our attention in the par 5s. Because we have the data, we can take a look at the proximity. Total procs last year wasn't a huge deal, but it had been a decent factor in years prior. The main approach lengths here at Seaside are these 2 lengths here. This 125 to 150 number is actually fairly large, but I don't see a whole lot here. Yeah, total procs is slightly negative. These 2 ranges are slightly positive. Don't see a whole lot here in terms of proximity lengths. Again, The majority of approach shots come from these two links, so if you want to focus on these two links, I don't blame you. But the data doesn't suggest that a lot needs to be paid attention to from that range. We're going to move back to Fantasy National and take a look at the players in the field who are best at those properties, at those statistics, those metrics that we just covered in the comparison course file. So we're going to take a look at strokes gained approach. And again, I've been doing this for the past couple of tournaments now. We're just going to look in the past 2 months because we have enough data from the Pro Core forward. Just be advised that, you know, players like Ludwig Aubert and Siwoo Kim, these others who haven't played yet, Denny McCarthy, haven't played in the fall, they're just going to be a little bit further down because they don't have any data. But your top approach players in the fall have been Lucas Glover, Doug Gim, Gary Woodland, Mac Hughes, Michael Kim, Ben Coles, Lee Hodges, Nick Hardy, Chris Kirk, Seamus Power, and Davis Thompson. If we remove the last 2-month filter and just make it the last 36 rounds, your top approach players then become Doug Gim, Lucas Glover, JJ Spawn, Luke Clanton climbs up. He also has not played in the fall, I don't believe, or if he has, it's just once. Yeah, okay, so he played the Pro Core, but then hasn't played since. Kelly Craft, Austin Smotherman, Nick Hardy, Ben Griffin, Brian Harmon, and Ben Coles. Again, skipping Mac Meisner, he has withdrawn. But as we saw in Microsoft Excel, the most important shot type here at the RSM is the putter. So we're going to filter out into Bermuda, and we're going to take a look at fast and lightning Bermuda, because we looked at this last night. Last year, lightning speed greens, fast. A couple of rounds of average in 2022, lightning, fast. These are pretty quick greens around Sea Island. So on fast and lightning Bermuda greens, your top putters have been Taylor Montgomery, Chad Ramey, Anders Albertson, Andrew Putnam, Ben Griffin, Mav McNeely, Sam Ryder, Justin Suh, Brendan Todd, Taylor Moore, and David Skins. Okay. I'm going to skip off the tee. If I end up putting it in the mixed condition model come Wednesday night, I'll explain why then. I think as of right now, I'm just leaning approach and putting. Let's move to fairways, greens, distance. Of course, distance doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do here, we're going to look at short courses, and we're going to look at fairways gained. When players have to club down, who can just find the fairway when they have to. And no surprise that most of these players are at the very bottom in terms of distance. But when on short courses, your top fairways gained players: Ryan Armour, Ryan Moore, Adam Long, Zach Blair, Ches Reavie, Sepp Straka, Lucas Glover, William McGirt, Hayden Buckley, and Tyler Duncan. Really, the only player that is respectable in distance would be Hayden Buckley. Austin Eckroat's a little bit further down here, 57th in distance, 13th in fairways. But really, these guys that are fairway finders, that's their game. They're going to lack distance because if they don't find the fairway, they're in just heaps of trouble. So I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to gain by looking at fairways gained this week. That is the metric from this page view that makes the most sense, but I just don't know how much we're going to want to look at that. Then moving into scoring, it was about the birdies gained. It really was. And if we take a look at the course breakdown and the scorecard, really there's one good eagle chance, and that is the par 5 15th at 4.5%. The other par 5 yields an eagle less than 1%. It's just really a lot of birdies around Sea Island. So we're going to be just looking at birdies gained. And again, due to the weather, I am a little hesitant to look at this easy relative to par filter. In fact, let's take a look at Baddeley. I know he played last week. I'm just interested to see how they rated the Bermuda Championship. So the first round was average, a couple easy, and then the fourth round was very difficult with all of that wind. Okay, interesting. With a couple of rounds of easy, maybe it makes sense to look at easy. We're definitely looking at birdies when it's short. So let's do easy first. We'll do easy first. Birdies gained when rounds are easy. Past couple of years, your top birdies gained players when rounds are easy: Justin Lauer, Davis Thompson, Eric Cole, Wesley Bryan, Hayden Springer, Ludwig Aubert, Marty Doe, S.H. Kim, Chris Kirk, and Austin Eckroat. If you change that and go birdies gained on short courses, let's see how that changes. It then becomes Eric Cole, Chris Kirk, Denny McCarthy, Trace Crowe, Taylor Montgomery, Justin Lauer, Keith Mitchell, Chandler Phillips, Luke List, and Alex Smalley become your top birdies gained players on short courses. With the winning scores getting into, getting close to minus 20, of course, Ludwig Aubert blitzing it, going almost minus 30 last year. I do think it's appropriate that we look at opportunities gained as well. So, your top opportunities gained players on short courses: Kevin Yu, Luke Clanton, Aubert, Merritt, Chris Kirk, Ben Griffin, Ches Reavie, Sam Ryder, Nick Hardy, and Brian Harmon. And then your top opportunities gained players when rounds are easy: Aubert, Joel Damon, Lucas Glover, Nick Hardy, Doug Gim, Luke Clanton, Chris Kirk, Carson Young, Eric Cole, and Ches Reavie. Okay. I'm going to skip the proximity. Again, I just didn't see enough statistically that would mandate us looking at the 125 to 175 range. Really, it's all in this chart here that would signify it. 23% of your approach shots at Sea Island come from 150 to 175, and then 21% come from 125 to 150. That's really all there is. It didn't, at least for the players who played well here, it didn't seem like they were gaining a whole lot in those ranges. So I'm going to skip that. And just like off the tee, if I get talked into it, I'll explain why Wednesday night in the mixed condition model. So instead, we're just going to go to par threes. And again, remember, all three of the ranges, 150 all the way to 225, were pretty darn even in terms of importance. So we're just going to look at all par threes. We'll go the entirety of the 2024 year. Your top par 3 performers in 2024 in the field this week: Nico Echeverria, Denny McCarthy, Nate Lashley, David Skins, Sepp Straka, Michael Kim, Siwoo Kim, Kelly Craft, Andrew Novak, and Maverick McNeely. Moving into par 4s, again, there was two ranges, 350 to 450. So your top 350 to 400 par 4 players: Gim, Shelton, Chris Kirk, Martin Laird, Wilson Furr, Martin Traynor, Jacob Bridgman, Zach Johnson, Pearson Coody, Mav McNeely. Probably put a star next to Bridgman, 8th and 21st. Brian Harmon, 14th and 17th. Putnam, 17th and 2nd. Blair and Kuchar, both 22nd and 6th. Yeah, Davis Thompson, 29th and 3rd. So there's a look at your top performers on the short par 4s, and then the mid-length par 4s. Lauer, Putnam, Davis Thompson, Ryo Hitsatsune, Roger Sloan, Zach Blair, Matt Kuchar, Svensson, Grayson Sigg, and Taylor Montgomery. And then moving into par 5s, all in the 550 to 600, Kevin Chappell, Eric Cole, Davis Thompson, Mac Hughes, Hayden Springer, Keith Mitchell, Paul Barjon, Patrick Fishburne, Luke Clanton, and Mark Hubbard. Okay, I'll take us back to strokes gained in case there are any questions. We'll move to the early look file. Let's take a look at the players in the past 5 years at Sea Island. What, these metrics that have been the most important, who has been playing or been performing the best at those metrics. So, of course, the first thing we're going to look at is putting. In the past 5 years, Eric Barnes, it's only one time, but he gained 5.6 in his one try. Taylor Montgomery has putt extremely well here. Adam Svensson, of course, his win a couple of years ago. Ryan Moore finished top 10, putt well. David Skins, Obear, Denny McCarthy, no surprise. Eric Cole has putt very well here. Kazire, K.H. Lee, Tyler Duncan, although he has a lot to be desired in terms of success. He's missed the cut 3 times, but he's also finished second twice or third twice. He also won way back in 2019. So, yeah. Neesmith's putt well here. Wallace. Damon has putt well here. Interestingly. Ben Griffin, 2 for 2. So there's your top putters the past 5 years at RSM, at Sea Island. Going to skip the fairways. We're just going to go to birdies, because that's where a lot of the important stuff is coming. So again, Eric Barnes, who finished 10th. Eric Cole, very good in the birdies gained. Of course, Ludwig Obear, Montgomery. There's Vincent again. Seamus Powers, 2 for 3. He's played pretty well here. Mac Hughes, of course, 2 runner-ups. 2 missed cuts as well, but 2 runner-ups. Played well. Webb Simpson generally plays well here. Brennan Todd, a St. Simons Island, Georgia native, or resident at least. Damon, Luke List. This doesn't feel like a good Luke List course yet. Here he is. He's gained several birdies, I believe. Was he okay putting here? Minus a half, which for Luke List, that's actually pretty good. So, Patton Kazire again, Poston. So there's your top birdies gained players. We're going to go to the par 4s. 350 to 4 and 400 to 450. Let's go 400 to 450. Your players that have performed the best on those holes at the RSM in the years past. Ludwig Obear, no surprise. Novak, a lot to be desired in terms of finish, but has performed well. Svensson's been obviously very good, winning 2 years ago. JJ Spawn has played very well here, 4 for 5. Michael Kim, Taylor Montgomery, Tyler Moore, only 1 for 2. Neesmith, 4 for 5. Ramey and Bird have performed well on those holes, but have not played well otherwise. Harmon, 4 for 5. Streelman, Rogers, okay. And then par 5s. 550 to 6. Neesmith again, Ben Griffin, K.H. Lee, Denny McCarthy, Smalley, McNeely. But again, some of these guys are leaving a lot to be desired in terms of average finish. So be aware of that. This course hasn't been very consistent in terms of promoting year-over-year results. So we'll sort this back on best average finish. And speaking of that statement of not being consistent, I'm going to end the show off this evening showing you some of the research that I posted to social media. So talking about how players haven't been very consistent here, this is what I call the winner matrix. This is something that shows how a champion performed at the RSM in the years leading up to their win. So, for example, Ludwig Aubert played it in 2021, missed the cut, didn't play it the year prior, and then wins. You see Adam Svensson had horrific prior history. 3 missed cuts and then wins. Taylor Gooch, 3 missed cuts. Top 25, but missed cut and then a win. Robert Streb has won it twice, but he had a lot of middling to poor success. So it's not very important how a player has performed here in years past, as you can see clearly. Aubert didn't play it the year prior. Svensson had never made a cut and then wins. Not a whole lot there to go on. So what is there to go on? Well, one of the first things that jumped out to me was recent form. You take a look at Aubert's form last year, and anything above the dotted line is signifying the FedEx fall portion or the fall portion of the schedule. Look at Aubert's form coming into his win. He had a runner-up at the Sanderson Farms, a top 15 and a top 10. He was in fantastic form. Svensson, not necessarily the greatest of form, but he did have a top 15 in the fall. Taylor Gooch, same. Fantastic form. Now, Houston wasn't good, but top 15, top 5, top 15, top 5. Fantastic form. Even Robert Streb, in the chaotic year that 2020 was, he had a top 25 in the fall before winning at the RSM. Tyler Duncan had a top 20. So every single winner going back to 2015, going back to Kevin Kisner or I believe Mac Hughes, the past 8 champions have all had a top 25 at some point during the fall. Okay, that was one of the first things that I noticed from previous champions. Something else that I noticed from previous champions is take a look at their performance on par 3s 200 to 225. Every single champion in the event prior to playing the RSM gained at those lengths of par 3s. Now, I understand that we went through the data this evening and the 200 to 225 par 3 range didn't separate itself out as being the most statistically significant. Just showing you the pattern here that the 200 to 225 par 3s, at least the champions were in good form in those par 3 lengths. And then the last bit of info or pattern that I had noticed from previous champions, most of these champions, with the exception of Robert Streb, who had won this tournament, and then Charles Howell, who had won several years prior. Ludwig Aubert, his first win on the PGA Tour was the RSM. Svensson's first win on the PGA Tour, the RSM. Taylor Gooch, Tyler Duncan, Austin Cook, Mackenzie Hughes. all of these guys, going back to Mackenzie Hughes, all except for Charles Howell and Robert Schreb, their first win was at the RSM. So be on the lookout for guys who have not won before. For whatever reason, Sea Island promotes first-time winners. But that's what I have for you all in terms of a Data Dive show this evening. I apologize that it was very, very delayed in terms of the start. I can't control the schedule, but I'm glad I was able to bring you something this evening. And a reminder that I will be live at the usual time, 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, for the DFS Tactics show for the final DFS contest, at least that I'm going to play in the 2024 calendar year. So make sure you set your reminders for that. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, watched, listened, supporting the channel, for liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at sports statistics, mainly golf statistics, but sports statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Some weeks better than others. So we're going to try to close the 2024 year off with a bang and capture some crowns, capture some titles in DFS this week at the RSM. Thanks again for all the support, for all of the wagers you've made so far this week for the RSM, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the RSM, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.